since October. Someone said about having much more protein, so I started on that. Didn't realize how important that was. In the beginning of the year, I was really determined to make a lot of changes as well and really cut down the alcohol and the sugar. So between alcohol down, sugar down, protein up, carbs down as well, I started losing loads of weight. So you told me before you joined this call how much weight I've lost, and really I lost about 7 kilos more than that before joining the program as well. So I'm probably 12, 13 kilos lighter than I was at the turn of the year.
What do you think drove you to be in that state when you got that score of 52 at the age of 37?
After dinner, sugar's a bit of a weakness of mine, especially in the evening. So I had a bar of chocolate in my fridge in work. Silver Camel piece is really good. And it lasted months, because during the day I could have a little nibble and I don't want any more. But in the evening, when I think I've depleted my dopamine and all my levels of resistance and all my sort of good decision-making ability, I have that first bite. It's like, oh, give me more of that.
And this is the show for founders, owners, executives, and high-performing operators who want to understand three things. Where am I now? Where am I heading? And how many optimal years of life can I reclaim? But there's a second part to that it's not enough to just reclaim years. We need to measure those years as accurately as we possibly can, because if the number doesn't reflect your real biology, it doesn't help you make better decisions. That's why the BioAge Index exists. We are building a unified biological age score that brings together three layers: functional age, which is how well your body performs; physical age, which is how your structure, metabolism, strength, and body composition are aging; and your cellular age, so what is happening underneath at the biological and molecular level. The mission is to reclaim as many years of optimal life as possible, and the discipline is accuracy, because the purpose is simple. That's to live better longer. That means more energy, less drag, sharper thinking, better recovery, stronger relationships, and a body that supports the life you're trying to build. The mechanism here is timing. Your body runs on rhythm, sequence, and structure. So what you do matters, but when you do it matters even more. Welcome to the BioAge Index. I'm your host, Grant Hutchby, and today is a slightly different episode. Today is a case study, and I'm joined by Max Scott. Max is a property investor, business owner, and high-performing operator. But this conversation is not about property. It's about the system underneath performance. Over the first 3 months of working through the program, Max has made measurable progress. His weight is down, body fat is down, sleep is up, recovery is up, VO2 max is up, and grip strength is up. And his biological age has moved in the right direction, which is the whole point. But the most important part is not the result. It's what caused the result, because Max didn't need more complexity. He needed the right systems in the right order at the right time. Max, welcome to the BioAge Index. Before we get into your story, your journey, your data, I want to start with one question, which I'm asking every guest moving forward, which is, what does longevity mean to you?
That's a great question, Grant, and thank you very much for the introduction. I think for me, it's obviously about living for a long time, but it's also about being able to really live while you're alive. Like some people, my mum's friend, for example, said when he hits 60, he said he's going to start moving more slowly. And I want to be flexible and fit and be able to go and climb a mountain with my kids when they're older. I remember someone on the board saying about their kids being 18, 20 and wanting to be active with them. And I thought, well, the weight I am at the time, this was a couple of years ago, if I don't get on top of certain things now, they're really ingrained as habits in my mid-30s. If they're still there in the mid, then suddenly you're losing time and you haven't got on top of these things. So it's really about being able to live fully while you're alive, as well as being able to extend your years.
Okay, really like that perspective. So give us a little bit of a summary of you and the situation you're in at the moment with your business. What are the sort of main stressors that you've got in your life at the moment, and how are you managing that from a longevity perspective? Because I know that you're a busy guy.
Yeah, a busy guy. I've got a lot of things going on. I've been more aware recently in terms of the wealth dynamics profile that I am a creator and that I like doing new stuff and creating stuff rather than seeing stuff through. So I've gone through a bit of a journey that I've shared with you the last couple of months of, do I build a team? Do I outsource the team? How do I manage these things that I've created, especially with AI? It's enabled me to go, well, hang on, I've got that idea and I think that's a niche and I don't think anyone does that. I've connected those dots, and to see something through and create a product which can then be passed on to a team to make something. So I've got a load of stuff that I want to do. I've just paid off an installment contract. So I now am in a better position financially month by month with cash flow. And I suppose, I went on an AI surge as I was doing your program as well. So some of the times I was meant to be going to bed at 10 and I was going to bed at 2, and I hadn't done that for 12 years since I first learned about property. But then, I'm in Hove. My office overlooks Hove Seafront. I'm very lucky. It's not an expensive office, but it's got a lovely view. And when it's sunny outside, I don't feel like I want to work all the time. So I'm trying to create a work and a business that enables me to have energetic moments where I work really hard and it's what I love doing and I want to create and make something. And moments where I say, I'm going to pause that and I'm going to go outside. Because if you don't manage to do that as a business owner and entrepreneur, then what are you doing it for? You're going to miss out on too many moments that you want to be fit and healthy and live for. So that's where I'm at. I'm not at a crossroads, but at a, turning point in many different ways throughout lots of different areas of my life. And yeah, then the longevity program has been a really good part of me staying the course. I tend to be quite seasonal in my approach to health and fitness and balance. Always have been to an extent, but then in the last few years, it's got better and better and better, all of the habits. And then probably since October, someone said about having much more protein. So I started on that. Didn't realize how important that was. In the beginning of the year, I was really determined to make a lot of changes as well and really cut down the alcohol and the sugar. So between alcohol down, sugar down, protein up, carbs down as well, I started losing loads of weight. So you told me before we joined this call how much weight I've lost. And really, I lost about 7 kilos more than that before joining the program as well. So I'm probably 12, 13 kilos lighter than I was at the turn of the year. And, I, 37, like to think I was quite fit and in all right shape. And I was, I'd been training for a while. But then obviously you've got your own index, right? So this is the one from the gym based on the scales where you hold your hands up.
Yeah,
So
metabolic age. Yeah.
metabolic age was 52 at the beginning of the year, and that is hang on, if you stay that much over your age when your kids are 18, how good are you going to be with them? How able to do the things that you love doing? Are you gonna be? I like dancing, I like moving, I don't like sitting still, and you don't want to be old fat couch potato who can't do any of those things.
Yeah. So that's a really good point, because that actually leads me quite nicely into my first question, which is obviously you had this little bit of a, I guess, wake up call with your metabolic age being at 52. And probably that was you were lucky that you got that age, because that was probably your biggest lever when it came to reducing and getting your health into the right direction. But what was actually going on at the time? What do you think drove you to be in that state when you got that score of 52 at the age of 37?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I dread to think what it was.
Oh,
Two,
even
three.
before that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, so my peak, which didn't last long, was like 113 kilos. So that was 102 at the beginning of the year. And I think at my peak, I've gone through a period of really high stress with many different things and many different challenges. And you can get to a point where you're walking through the front door when you come home, and rather than, regulation like you teach, you go for crisps, peanuts, alcohol, whatever it is. I was moving in with my dad. We were renovating our house. Megan was pregnant. We, due a baby here really soon. House wasn't ready. And, my dad would say, dinner will be ready at 7. And it would never would be. It would be half an hour later easily. So you sort of start getting hungry ahead of your time. And on the table was a bowl of salted peanut and a bottle of red wine. And so then it shot up a little bit more. But even then, I would say, for the last 7 years, 8 years, I haven't been under 100. I can't really remember the last time I was. It might even be more like 15, 16, 17 years. And so I was really pleased when I dipped under 100, and now I'm dipped under 90. And I've been on holiday for 2.5 weeks where I was
Woohoo!
not doing everything the program said. And I come back and I'm back within the weight I was within a week again. And, so that's under 90 kilos. And that for me was just the level that I wasn't even aiming for at the beginning of the year because I didn't think was possible. And now I feel really confident in being able to stay at or around that level, and that I've found a way of balancing my life and being motivated. And a load of it for me just comes down to noticing your moments of weakness and resisting that first moment. So, for example, a nice sunny day today, or it's Friday, not sure what I'll do. It's the summer, but if I go home, walk through the front door and crack open a drink straight away, that will be me having 2 or 3, bottles of beer, not a lot. And then after the kids go to bed, I never really like drinking anyway. But if I resist that first one, then I don't miss it. Once you've got past that phase, you want one. After dinner, sugar's a bit of a weakness of mine, especially in the evening. So I had a bar of chocolate in my fridge in work. Silver Camel piece is really good. And it lasted months because during the day, I could have a little nibble and I don't want any more. But in the evening, when I think I've depleted my dopamine and all my levels of resistance and all my sort of good decision-making ability, I have that first bite. It's like, oh, give me more of that. So I've got to resist that first beer when I come in. I've got to resist that first bit of sugar in the evening. Make sure I have enough protein, and that for me is a huge thing of the balance. But even when it comes to like Saturday, I think, oh, kids have made some healthy pancakes, or Megan's made some for them. Scrambled egg and pancakes, not that bad. OT ones, whatever. But I noticed just by having the carbs early in the day, my routine's gone because I don't have breakfast normally. I'd have a protein shake at 10 to be consistent. Is I'm starving all day, so I'm now noticing what makes me hungry, what doesn't. And just by being able to switch the type of food I'm eating when, so my snack now, if I do get hungry, I try and have is a high protein, low UPF, like little yogurt. So, it's like 170 calories and 25 grams of protein, and that satiates you without being calorific. And that kind of is, and then you start fancying that a little bit less, even that, because it's not full of sugar. Whereas if there's sugar there, you fancy that. So that has been my biggest changes in, certainly from the weight loss perspective.
Yeah, I think you touched on some really, really good points there. Where there was one thing from before where you said about your health was sort of in seasons before, like you'd go through seasons with your health. And
Yeah.
and actually I think that's a really, really good point, because I think a lot of people out there, they probably go through seasons. Like what happens is the sun comes out, they want to enjoy themselves for the summer. You enjoy yourself for the summer, barbecues, wine, beer, whatever, holidays, right? And you enjoy yourself and you get to the end of the summer and you feel like shit because you've put on loads of weight, and you then think, oh, I've got to get my health back in order. And then it gets to Christmas, right? And then Christmas does it again. So it's like you have these seasons. But if you can find a way of having this, I call it the 80-20 rule. And it's a bit like you don't have to live like a monk, but 80% of the time you got to do things right so that 20% of the time you can let your hair down and do the things that you want to do. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And so, like, you touched on that about Christmas and all that. So December, probably from like 10th, 15th of December, you have a couple of bad weeks. And you should, like, that's what it's about, right? And if you don't enjoy food and friends, and at that point of time, when are you? But if you have a bad November, well, and you don't get, a November, that then it's just like a whole bad, and then you go from the summer through to December, and suddenly you've got a bad 9 months. Whereas I go, all right, 6th of October is my birthday, so after that, be healthy for the rest of the year. Well, 2 months basically, much healthier, and also everyone's kind of bit burnt out from the summer anyway, socially, business wise, whatever. So you don't have as much in the diary. So it's a good time to say, I'm going to do less now. And also time where seasonally we slow down, we settle down. You then have December, then again back into January, February, March. It might as well be boring. There's nothing in the diary then anyway. So why do you need to go home and drink? Like, that's the time to not be sensible, get on top of your business, really grain those habits in a routine. And then even now, unless, like, obviously we've just been away for a couple of days or whatever, but when I've got a week where I'm not away, which is 3 out of 4 weeks of the month, I will be in my routine during the week. Coffee in the morning, protein shake, a chicken salad for lunch, delivered to me every day. Takes away all the decision making. And that means by the time it gets to the evening, I've been healthy 5 days a week at least. And then the evenings, I kind of just like chicken and salad or a bit of veg or whatever. Like, and if Meg's made spaghetti bolognese one, like, doesn't matter because I'm healthy most times. So then the routine is really good during the week and during the seasons. But it will just be a pivot in how extreme I take it. I'll be more relaxed in the summer, more relaxed in December. But even in December, that Monday, Friday, try and have that, don't go into the bacon sandwiches for breakfast. I actually feel better when I'm having a routine. But I think if I had to stick to it for a year, I'd feel worse from a sort of social and fun of life perspective. So that's how I'm just trying to like balance and find my rhythm, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, what's nuts is that our bodies really like routine and structure, right, to perform at their absolute best. But there's a part of our mind that has a need for variety, and that's important. That's one of the 6 major human needs is variety. If we don't, if we don't give ourselves that variety, it stresses us out, and
Yeah.
and sometimes having that drink, that beer, when you're consciously doing it because you're like, do you know what? I want to have a really good conversation with this person. I want to have a great connection with this person. That value of that connection can sometimes have much more impact on your stress levels than what you think, just by sacrificing a little bit of the cost on your body for, that relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I fundamentally believe that we need that variety in our life, which is why we've got that 80-20 rule. So
Yeah.
within the program, I know that you were sort of focused a lot on your body fat, getting that down to where you wanted it to be while maintaining your strength at the same time. So we had a little bit of a debate throughout the program around your grip strength, if you remember, and what was healthy for you, why it was this, why it was that. And you told me something interesting the other day, which I want to touch on now, which was you had a break for a couple of weeks of not really doing much strength training. You came back from your break and you pulled one of your best scores. So can you talk to me a little bit about that?
So my average grip strength score was probably about 56. It's off the top of my head. It probably ranged from
Yeah, yeah,
53 and a half, 57 and a half, or something like that, right?
yeah.
I got one that was in the 60s, and it wasn't just a few weeks, it was 8 weeks because we did Tough Mudder together. And on the first obstacle, like the 9 foot high wall, cracked a rib. Didn't want to moan, carried on doing the whole obstacle course and another 16K of running, and then went to France and, beers and croissants, right? So 8 weeks of training, come back in, look at the grip strength thing in the office and think, going to be rubbish. Bang, boshed out a proper grit strength score. And I was like, couldn't believe it, right? And, I've done 2 minute dead hangs. And, for my age on your metric, I still had a low grip strength. I think of myself as a strong person, and it was just frustrating. So, yeah, maybe I needed that break as well to get back into it. I'm not convinced the grip strength machine fits my hand properly. That's my excuse. But yeah, it was interesting. Genuinely, 8 weeks of strength training, and I thought I'd lost loads of muscle. And that score is what, 10% above average?
Yeah, I mean, to be at over 60 kilos for anyone is like, I would say, an elite level. If you're able to dead hang for 2 minutes, I remember when you did that for the first time, that's an elite level. So we talked about your strength probably not being your constraint. We all know that your constraint was your body fat, sometimes your sleep and recovery, your stress levels. That was sort of the stuff that we focused on. The other thing I want to touch on, which I think this is not more for us, but for other people to understand what this means, is that your HRV is actually fairly low. And I noticed that right from the very beginning. But you can run a 10K in under 60 minutes because you did that for I think you ran it in about 52 minutes, didn't you? Your 10K that you did. What I want to try and highlight to people is that a high HRV is not necessarily a good thing. It's more having a balanced HRV. So being someone that has a lower than normal HRV, I would say, for your age, what sort of lessons have you learned from that with regards to your sort of recovery and cardiovascular fitness?
Well, I just break that down into the cardiovascular fitness and then the recovery, right? So the cardiovascular fitness, not only did I do that 10K, that was the second endurance run I've done in years. And mostly on sort of a mixture of strength and like functional fitness, right? Heart rate doesn't get that high. It's not pure strength, healthy, but missing the VO2 max. And then I was like, we've got Tough Mudder, so I might as well do a half marathon as well. And that'll get me fit. And then I'll be into my cardio after that, having pushed myself with some events. So I did all of that, did my half marathon time in under 2 hours, really pleased myself, fractured a rib, haven't done any cardio since. I was really looking forward to trying to get it up there. So I guess that's 2 years of consistent gym training meant that even though I hadn't done that much cardio, it didn't take that much to get my legs in the right place to do a half marathon in under 2 hours. So that was a good bit on the cardiovascular side of things. And now I'm back training, done 2 sessions in the last 5 days or something. So yeah, get some runs in as well. Then I would say the recovery side of things is interesting because really, I think that's my personal journey that I need to go on next. Like, like learning, like personal development. And really, sometimes you don't really know what you're like or what everyone else is like or what people do. And I would say I've never really had a lunch break or not think, oh, I know, I'll chill out and I'll block that time out. My work has always felt important and urgent and always been in a bit of a rush. And I'm trying to shift that as I get into a different financial position, but it's still quite innate within me. And we had our talk about rest and regulation. You're saying, break every 60, 90 minutes for this amount of time or whatever. I just like, that is so alien to me. And the first time I tried it, sitting down trying to do, NSDR for 10 minutes during the day where I normally don't take a break. And I was really itchy and found it really, really uncomfortable. And so I think for me now, that is my goal, is to be able to train myself to be able to rest and switch off. And then someone that, we know is talking about their HRV and it can get to 100. I said, can I ask you, have you ever sat in a chair and relaxed? And he looked at me like I was joking. I said, yeah, of course I have. I said, well, I'm not sure I have. Genuinely, without there being a good conversation or work or a meal or something, a drink in your hand or whatever, have I sat down and just felt completely at ease and in no rush or like that? I think you go on holiday sometimes, you take that photo of the beautiful scene. Everyone's like, oh, it's amazing. I'd love to go there. I go, oh, this amazing scene's right in front of me now. And you try and look at it for 5 minutes. That's really hard. 60 seconds and you're about like, I've really soaked it up now. I've got to carry on walking or something like that. So it's about trying to just de-sense that sense of rush within me, I think. And the more yesterday with Adam and Mood, we had some great techniques, and a couple of them you had already been teaching, like the non-sleep deep rest, and some that I think are new. And that's going to be, we talked about having a midday reset and stuff. And I basically going to try and do a rest and regulation routine. Then to not go back to work after that, to try and do some reading and writing, which I miss and like I like doing, but of the topics that are grounding, like change your thoughts, change your life, that we're reading and stuff like that.
Sure.
And I think to do some reading and journaling around those topics, tying in with the regulation break, and I'm hoping I can see myself hit HRV scores that I haven't in the past. So that's where I'm trying to go with it. But it was funny timing with learning on the program, and with a storm coming my way on the work and life front towards the end of it. So yeah.
I genuinely have got the most progress when I've focused on my recovery. And I think that you're in a slightly unique situation where have you been diagnosed with ADHD, or is it something, so you have been diagnosed with it? So I mean it is slightly different, but a lot of entrepreneurs have that as well. Like there's a high percentage of entrepreneurs that have ADHD, and that means that you're very good at focusing on things but not so good at the down regulation.
Yeah.
Because I know that you have focused on especially down regulating yourself in the evenings. Why do you think it's difficult for you to bring that into your day?
Well, I mean, I'm trying in the evenings and I am much better. And like basically stretching and stuff is one of the only things that takes me close to that place. I'm talked about building a sauna in my shed. The materials have taken about 3 months to arrive because I think saunas have suddenly become quite popular. So it's not finished yet, but sauna's the other thing. I've been in one this morning. To be honest, like I would say to this, when I'm feeling really busy, like during the day at work, I genuinely like run a little bit to the toilet and back because I feel like it's that busy and that like sense of urgency. I can't, like, one of the questions on the ADHD form is, do you feel like you're driven by a motor? And like it is that sentence, you're like, oh, just take 10, 15 minutes breaks, it'll be 60 to 90 minutes. Well, that's 45 minutes of my day gone. That's like 10%, all of that opportunity. And I think loads of people will go, you get more out of your day if you take the breaks. And I think logically, I think I can understand that, and it's true. But how I feel is that I can either work 10, 11 hours a day where I'm sharp and on it and I don't need a break, or that I'll do that for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and then I'm like, just have a period where I try and work really hard in the day and I'm just not at the same level of productivity. I can't task switch as well. I can't complete things as well. So start doing something and then jump off. And that was when I was in a phase last summer where I was doing that a lot. That's when I thought, this is really hard work. And I think I might have ADHD. And I think that maybe I could get some help with it. And then, got the diagnosis. And that's sort of just trying to learn and understand about how to manage those strengths and weaknesses as well. Because there are strengths, massive strengths that come with it. And you've got to try and prop up the weaknesses as well.
What stops you from stopping? Like,
So one of the things I've really noticed is sometimes it sounds like you're sensory seeking, right? Sometimes you just talk to people who just know a little bit and they just say something that's like bang, you're like, what do you mean by that? They're like, well, like give people a hug when or I like music all the time. Right? If I'm at home, kids have their songs on, whatever, as long as there's something going on. And then another thing with ADHD is you find like a really basic situation that no one struggles with to stress you out. And then a situation that would overwhelm most people, you could be quite calm during. And I never heard anyone say it really, but I was on holiday for some reason. It just popped into my head. I was like, it's because the environment's risen to match my internal state and therefore I feel calm. So the way I would describe it is if you've got a manual car and you start slowing down to the point where if you're going too slowly for that gear, the car starts going like that and you should accelerate. So I describe it as not being able to change down gear to slow down. So the lowest gear you can go down is like gear 2 or 3. And so you have to speed up so that the revs and the gear match, and that's where you feel comfortable. So I feel like I thrive in chaotic environments. And this is the traits of, like you talk about, not entrepreneurs being ADHD, or whether it is, or whether it's because they grew up in chaos. There is a reason why we are able to survive and thrive in chaotic environments compared to people that haven't gone through certain situations, circumstances, or have those neurodivergent traits. And I think that the crossover is insanely broad, and it comes down to thriving in chaos. And now trying to figure out how to thrive outside of it as well and slow down and get myself to. But it is practice, because every now and then you go and you do a breathing technique with someone for 10 minutes and think, I actually feel like for the first time I've slowed down in a lower gear. And it does take that. So trying to like, there is a process you can go through, I believe, I'm still trying to master to get to that point of trying to get to.
Yeah. How long you been an entrepreneur for, Max?
I've never applied for a job.
There you go. So
So
you,
one way or
you
another, whether it was finding a meeting, working for people or whatever, I
yeah.
was an entrepreneur for a very long time. So I drove my own company and department funded by someone. So I had a boss and an investor, but very much was entrepreneurial within that creation of shall we do this and doing it and having autonomy and all of that.
Yeah, I think like what we got to appreciate, and this is what anyone listening to this has got to appreciate as well. If you're trying to change a behavior within yourself that you have been doing for decades, it's going to take longer than a couple weeks to change it. And it's going to be uncomfortable to change it as well. Because imagine you're just, instead of doing this that you've been doing for 20 odd years, you now need to switch to doing something else.
Yeah.
Music.
I would say it goes about being aware about it. So I hit that point and I was like, okay, I'm aware that this is going on now. And you say that like it should be obvious, but actually it wasn't that obvious to me that I was like that. And then it's motivation to change. And it's like, well, was I motivated? I was in a bit of a splurge. And I'm like, okay, now I'm feeling a bit more burnt out. I realize it's probably because I could have found balance and blah, blah, blah. So now I'm motivated again. And then you've got to break the habit by practicing. So those are the 3 steps. And I'm probably in between 2 and 3 at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, and as well, like if you want to get good at something, you have to accept you're going to be a little bit shit to start off with, you know. Like
Yeah.
any if you want to be good at something, you have to accept that you're not going to be great at it at the beginning, and you've got to make that conscious effort. So I think Max, you've done an absolutely cracking job in getting your body composition, your strength, your fitness, and all of that sort of, I would say, surface physical stuff to probably a place that you're really happy with now and that you feel like you can maintain. I genuinely believe that if you can fix the recovery up here, like your brain will send the signals to the rest of your body and it will automatically go to the next level. Like your muscles and your metabolism of fat will all change when your recovery becomes in tune. So talk to us about that plan. What's that plan to actually make that something part of your life?
The recovery side.
Yeah.
So, well, one
Stress regulation, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so one of the things like I haven't done is to come off social media and TV. And the social media at the beginning of the year was because I realized that I was just seeking distraction. That's what a lot of stuff comes down to, is seeking distraction. Part of that is because we're addicted, and part of it is because we can't sit with any level of discomfort, which actually blocks the discomfort from leaving our body and mind. So, I downloaded it again on one of my phones and I was just like not bothered. I was just like, this doesn't feel like something I want to do at the moment. But then the TV point was really interesting because I hadn't realized that basically something was like fairly boring or slow TV, like Clarkson Spark. Love it. And that's one of the only programs that's like that, that's chilled out and watched in the evening. Otherwise, it's like gangster shit or like detective stuff. And it just fills you with like adrenaline and like this mild state of stress. And actually, I think partly ADHD and like we're all distracted these days, they're making TV much easier to multitask during now, is that it needed to be intense to get my attention. And I needed the intention because I wanted to switch off and watch TV. So I still go to sleep fine, I thought, but stopping that. So I think the sauna is going to become a huge part of it, and just trying to read a tiny bit. Like I've always felt in the evening I don't have capacity to read.
Okay.
But I think a lot of that is down to being burnt out from doing a 10-hour day without a 5-minute rest in it. So if I can sort of like sauna, read in the evening, have a reset during the day, that's going to be my key thing. And I know that I'm going to need to just force myself into a habit of doing some breathing techniques for a few minutes a day and, to do that. And also what I find is so often, it says, oh, when you're in the shower, that's when your idea comes to you, whatever. It's often when I switch off that I find the solutions to the thing. So actually, to try and sometimes you can't see what's obvious in front of you and you can see that's other stuff. And I think that rest is important to then notice what is obvious that you need to be doing, whether it's work, life, whatever.
Yeah. I think a lot of people look at this in the gym, but don't look at it in other areas of their life. So let's use the gym as an example. When you go to the gym, you put a stress on your body so that your body can adapt to that stress. Now, the body won't adapt if you continue to put that stress on yourself over and over again without giving it the rest. So for the body to adapt, you have to have load plus recovery, and that gives you the adaptation. It's the same with your brain. So if you imagine phone stimulus, work stimulus, thinking stimulus, that is all load on your brain. For your brain to be able to adapt to that load and grow and develop, you have to give it time of rest. You have to give it a period of time where it's not doing anything. So I guess, have you noticed any benefit from the minimal times that you have given your brain a rest? Because I know you tried it a little bit when you were away by putting your phone away for a day or two. Like, have you noticed any true benefits from doing that in the little times that you've tried it?
Yeah, I mean, so I turned both my phones off for 3 days, and to be honest, part of the reason was because I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed, distracted. I'd gone on holiday, thought everything was on top. A couple of things came up; they're important enough; they need to be jumped on, whatever. And just realised that I felt quite distracted. And then by the third day, we were just playing in, a river in this beautiful town in France, and just felt very, very present for the whole afternoon. And that was really nice. I guess what I've noticed is that if I don't do it, I will go in big cycles of burnout and then working hard. And I think there's going to be an element that there's always going to be a little bit of that within me, partly motivation, partly seasons, partly like what's in front of you. Like sometimes you can take on loads of stuff and it's really exciting. But it can be really exciting while you're uninformed about how hard it's going to be. And then you realize it's hard and you lose your motivation a little bit. You fix those things that are those challenges, and then you like back up to informed full motivation. So, I mean, I notice when I stretch, I feel calmer. When I go to the sauna, I feel calmer. And the other thing that happened was that when I broke the rib, is exercise stopped for the first time in like years. And quite quickly, although lots of stuff went on at the same time, noticed that sense of agitation underlying on a more regular basis. So I think that exercise, I remember a couple of times feeling quite stressed out after a hard day of work, going to, batter on the squash court, and you kind of process some of that
Mm.
physical stress. So I think that can be exercise, it can be sauna, it can be stretching. Breathing, I think, is the one that I need to do more often, and probably end my day thinking or working on something that's like a healthy book about healthy habits and going in the direction I need to go on. Because otherwise, if I end it on this stimulated, I'm rushing and finishing to then go and try and go home, you don't particularly like close the box ready to open it the next day. You've ended it on whirring things going around. So I'm trying to, like I talked about my rhythm from a food perspective, Monday to Friday, I now need to get my rhythm from a work during the day perspective with those regulation breaks, with how I end the day and stuff like that. So I suppose the good things are like the awareness has gone right up on the impact and of these things. But in terms of the execution, it was like a bit manic. And then I've been on holiday for a couple of weeks. And now I'm just feeling like I'm ready to get into a routine again and a rhythm.
Well, look, everyone goes through their own journey. I mean, whenever you need to fix something, it starts off with unconscious incompetence and then it moves to conscious incompetence, doesn't it? So you're sort of in that stage of realizing, do you know what? I'm not so good at this, but I'm now aware of it and I know I need to fix it. And then what happens is you move into that conscious competence where you're doing it on a regular basis, but you have to really force yourself to do it. And then you get to that unconscious competence where it just becomes part of your daily rhythm, and it is a really good place to be in when you get there. But I don't want that to detract away from the fantastic work that you've done. I mean, if you scroll back,
Yeah, yeah,
if you think about, being a 52-year-old, right? And now you're sitting, I mean, the last calculation that I've got, which may change once your cellular tests come back. You've done those, right? And it's coming back soon.
yeah, yeah. We've done them. We haven't added them into the
Yeah,
machine
cool.
yet.
So that hasn't been added in yet, but currently you're sitting at about 35, which means technically you've lost about 18 years
Yeah, yeah.
over the last 6 months or so. I mean, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, one, it's just really terrifying to see, that you're 52. To be honest, one of the things that I found strange with losing weight and the progress is obviously I've been delighted with it, but there is a sense of like, this doesn't feel like the point to plateau either. There's almost like a mini plateau for holiday for the summer, but I'm not like, cool, this is where I want to be and where I want to maintain now. I want to lose a little bit more weight, get a bit more flexible, get those regulation in, and kind of like really kind of seeing the markers really influences your behavior. And actually, like Dan got us these whoops in September, and that was a real start on the train of awareness. Is that you eat in the evening, it affects your recovery score. You have alcohol too late, it affects your recovery score. But like eating and drinking at the right time and in a moderate amount, and then having a long break before you go to bed, and actually was all right. And so you're like, okay, well, how can I how do I balance this to make the most of it? And it kind of just gives you awareness to how you feel. Like, you know, you can feel a bit groggy sometimes and you have an extra coffee or a bit more rubbish food to try and get through the day. And actually, like, no, you don't want to do that. And to feel your best, you see how important it is to stay on the right path, as it were. And it does kind of motivate you seeing the stats. And you obviously have a lot more stats for a lot of different things. And you're like, cool, the VO2 max is still below where I want it to be. And obviously, the VO2 max is quite a short burst of endurance as a test. So off the half marathon, it didn't really change much, but I still didn't really test it on that 15-minute short run, see how far you can go. So now I need to try and get that. And I kind of, like, for my own sake, want to see, I suppose, really how good I can feel by bringing the things that are still weak on my scores up into a good place. And that's
Yeah.
kind of like, should be the motivation. I remember a couple of years ago thinking, well, what do I really want from my health? And I thought, well, it's what it comes down to energy. And that's not just like the amount of energy or it's how often you've got energy. It's like the type of energy you've got as well. When you feel that clean surge of energy, it's really good. And when it's like the opposite, yeah, you really notice the grogginess or whatever on it.
You know when it's real energy. And I've been through a similar journey. Like when I turned 40, that was the first time I did a Blue Crest assessment. And, I was near 50 on that assessment. And I made myself a commitment that one, I was going to get back to being my age again. But two, when I started getting back into my 30s as a 40-year-old, in terms of how old I am biologically, I've set myself a big goal now to always be in my 30s. So
Yeah.
I don't want to turn 40 again for
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
while,
yeah.
for a while at least, right? So I'm sitting right now. I fundamentally believe that I can get to about 15, 20 years below my chronological age biologically. So if I
Yeah.
can do that, I'm currently at 9. If I can do that, then I potentially could get back into my 20s over the next few years. And that's
Yeah.
pretty exciting, which means over the next 10, 15, 20 years, I'm still going to be in my 30s.
Yeah, it's almost like a reverse birthday, isn't it? Rather than celebrating your birthday,
Yeah.
you're gonna get below a milestone and then celebrate that you're still under the age of 30 biologically.
That's it. That's it. And that's what the game's all about, because by doing that, it's not about the number. It's about the life that you can have because of that number. And that's the cool thing about it. That's the great thing about biological age. And I just want to change people's perception from looking at chronological age to looking at biological age, because that will tell you a much bigger story.
And I think that's what when you asked about the definition of longevity at the beginning, like that's what I feel it is about for me. And, one of the things that you mentioned, but it's not specifically like measures part of your program, is how many older people die within a very short period of time of falling over and breaking a hip.
Mm.
And a lot of that comes down to, if you were strong and flexible, what is the percentage reduction of the chance of you doing that? But it's quite high. And not only that, but if you're strong, flexible, fit, and have got a young biological age, as you hit those older milestones, the difference in what your life looks like is going to be insane. And then that is going to make you live longer, because you can go to a sunny holiday, you can climb a mountain, you can do all of those things. And that's going to keep you longer than if you have to just sit on a chair. And then if you can only sit in a chair, well, you might as well drink 'cause you're not going anywhere. Like all of those things like compound massively. I think the quality of your years in the later years will be very, very different. And that's a huge motivation to be in that place, really.
Yeah, no, definitely. One thing that we haven't touched on, which is actually in my notes, we do this for ourselves. Absolutely. We want to feel better. We want to move better. We want to be better. However, we've got a whole wealth of people around us, our family, our loved ones, our kids, our wives, our partners. Question for you, because this definitely had an impact for me, was how can you see, as you've got better over the last 6 to 8 months, as you've improved, how has that changed your relationship with people at home?
Um, I wouldn't say it's changed my relationship with people at home particularly. I mean,
Okay. Or home
maybe
life.
the more I feel regulated, I am sure the more I will be present with the kids. For example, I can see that being a huge thing. What I think has changed in terms of at home
Mhm.
is it's one thing to do as I say, not as I do. But if you're a dad that wants to say, no, you need to be healthy, but you're not being healthy,
Yeah. Yeah.
kids will monitor behavior far more than words, and as does
Mhm.
everyone, really. So that comes down to what type of food you're eating and what you're showing them is important. And I go, like Margaret this morning, just as I left, she goes, "Where are you going, Daddy?" I was like, I'm going to the gym and then I'm going to work. So that's part of who she sees who I am. And that is going to make her more likely to be someone that goes to the gym or does exercise in her older age. So just being aware that you are a role model by your behavior and your habits really as well.
Yeah.
Loads of this is habits, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you've touched on a really, really good point there. And like, it's not necessarily maybe you've noticed a relationship change, but you feel so much better when you're talking to your kids and the things that you're doing are actually having a positive impact on your life. And you know that they're witnessing that. They're witnessing you having a glass of water as opposed to a couple pints of beer. You know, they're
Mm.
witnessing you eating whole foods as opposed to a microwave meal. You know, when you go to work, you're telling them about, I'm going to the gym, I'm doing this, not I'm going out with my mates down the pub, you know, and that is going over a period of time, and they see that over and over again. They look up to that rather than down on it.
Well, I don't even think they look up or down. They just see it as that's what they should do.
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
you know what I mean? They're probably not
I see it
consciously
as
going.
normal.
You're normalizing that behavior, and that will have a pull for them to be more like that. You know, loads of kids, and I think you realize it as you become a parent, you're far more like your parents than you thought you were. You know, go through this period when you're 17 thinking, I ain't going to be like them. And then you get old and you're, oh, yeah, it's starting to creep back in or whatever. Like you're going to default to the habits you learn growing up, I think, basically. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes, so like, I think it's also extremes. Like if you've had a really bad upbringing and you've seen really bad behaviors, that pushes you away from them sometimes. Not that my wife had a bad upbringing, but she certainly turned out slightly different to her brothers and sisters, because she took a different view on it. But
I think
like,
you adopt subject. So you don't necessarily want to adopt, but a lot of the time you go in that same direction and it takes conscious effort. Say, no, I'm not going to be like that or do that and move in the opposite direction. But either way, you normally don't have balance in that specific area.
yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. I certainly see that in our kids to a degree. Our kids are definitely more entrepreneurial than I was when I was their age. You know, they're thinking about starting up their own business. They don't want to work for other people. You know, you've got two of the kids that don't want to get jobs because they just want football. You've got daughter who is studying at university and set up her own business. And then you've got our other son who never wants to work for anyone else and is constantly working on ideas for a business. So, you know, that sort of stuff is great to see. And I do believe that it's our influence that has made them be like that. At least I like to think so. But we're sort of coming to the end a little bit, Max. So I've got a couple questions just to wrap up. And then I'll hand it over to you if there's anything else you'd like to say. But there are going to be founders, owners, executives that are listening to this who are successful on paper, but might feel that their biology is starting to drift, that they're not sleeping as well. They don't have the same energy levels that they used to have. What would you say to someone like that and someone that's been through it?
I think the most interesting thing for me is if you just park that question for a second and ask the same audience why you liked it. It will probably come down to the life you want to lead and for yourself and the life you want to leave for your family, whether that's leave them or live with them now. That's probably what most things tend to come down to. And yet there's this irony that in order to do that, ignore our bodies and go fully focused in one direction. And can quite often, and I notice this for myself as well, you set that milestone and then you go past that milestone and you don't definitely think, oh, that was that milestone. That would have been really amazing. Like you just look forward at the next milestone. And then you've got to stop and think, hang on, I'm where I wanted to be. And I don't really feel that level of satisfaction, or that's kind of ingrained habits that I continue compounding the wealth or my learning or my business or whatever. And then you've got to stop and say, well, why are you doing it and what is important to you? When you do that, you ask yourself the question, and then the answer is, well, I want to be able to be fit and flexible. And in my old age, you can look at two people in their mid 70s and one can't walk. And, you know, not talking about disabled, I mean, like literally just not physically able, and one's flexible, playing with the grandkids and doing all of that. And, you know, I think you don't want to work your whole life to the point where you then suddenly wake up in a body and think, I'm tired, sluggish, and don't have the energy to live that I want. And I was working towards this point of retirement and I've got the wrong body, you know? And I think it's like, you know, life's for living now. And you'll be really careful for anyone in any career or any business not to mark when. If I get to there, then it will all be better. You know, it's about doing it now, living it now and then enjoying the journey and then just aiming for those things on top. And I think if you don't do that, I think that would resonate with most people and they go, oh yeah, that makes sense, but are you doing it? Have you prioritized it? Have you decided to make that priority? So like before this program, long ago, I would work many hours in a week and in a day. I wouldn't take a break at all. Whereas at least now, before this program, I was taking breaks to go to the gym. So I'd still have
Yeah,
an hour
that
or
was your
like
saving grace.
2 hours that I do within the gym 3 days a week, and that would break it up. And I capped it towards how much I was going to work and all of that. And I think it's just going up some layers from there. And it's what kind of life do you want to live at what age? And I think for me, it's about living a long time and also being able to really fully live throughout all of those days and bring it back down to the here and now.
Mm.
It's about having energy at the weekends because the kids are exhausting, obviously they're young, and about being present with them. And if I don't regulate, I'm not going to have that. And that's my main motivation. Obviously, that health and longevity is another one, but that's the score that I want to get is so that I can enjoy the weekends more with the kids and also for them to enjoy my presence and energy more as well.
Yeah, and I think the younger you are, the more present you can be, because it's all going to tie in together. I've got two big goals at the moment, and that's my biological age, my BioAge Index, and profit within my business. Because I know that if I can deliver those two things, I can not only be present with my family, but I can provide them the things that they need to have things that they want at the end of the day, and be happy in their lives. Because it's not just about financial. Your kids, your family, your wife, your partner, they want you there. And if you're constantly working all the time, that's not going to give them what they want, even though they've got the money that they want, right? They don't have
Yeah.
you, and you're there for a reason, not just to line their pockets at the end of the day. Um,
Yeah.
so summarize that then and reflect on some of the things that you've been through over the last, I would say, 6 to 8 months. What would be your three top tips for someone in a similar situation that maybe is aging faster than they should be, working really, really hard, financially stable, but wants to get their health and longevity on track? What would be your three top tips?
Change only happens when the pain is greater required to change than the pain of staying the same, or the other way
Got to
around.
want to change.
You got to want to change more than you want to stay where you are. That the pain's got to be greater. So I think it's find your motivation, find your why. I sort of
Ah, okay,
love
good
this.
point. Yeah.
Why is big enough. The how will take care of itself. So the first thing is to get the motivation,
Lovely.
and then there's probably like the biggest win or the easiest win. And for me, that's the low hanging fruit, right? So for me, that was weight, well overweight, 27% body fat at the beginning of the year. And that was me in an all right place compared to the last 4 or 5 years before that. And then how did I impact that most? Well, it was actually, I didn't even think protein was that important. Protein up, carbs down, avoid the first drink, avoid the first bit of sugar. Really simple. And actually, then when you start feeling good, that motivation increases, the weight was coming down. And then I'm like, right, I'm motivated now. I've got my long term why. I can feel that I'm moving in that direction. And that's giving me more little whys along the way. And then it's like, what can I add in? What can I add in? What can I add in?
Mhm.
And then the more you're adding in and the better progress you make, the more you're refining and actually going like, oh, now I'm in a good place. I'm actually now in a good place and I want to get into a great place. So, that to get to a great place was never in my mind before because it was skipping too many steps. So yeah, that would be mine.
Excellent. So find your why and your motivation to change. Then it was to find that big win, right? What's the biggest
Like
win that you can get? And then refine it over time. Would you say that that would
refine,
be
get
the
yeah, yeah.
cool? Wicked. All right, wicked. There's some great tips there, mate. So thank you very much, Max. The last sort of question, just to finish things off, is there anything that you'd like to add, and how would you like people to get in contact with you? Because I know that you've written a fantastic book, Why Property, and there's probably going to be some property entrepreneurs listening to this as well. So this is your chance just to mention that and around that, because I'd love you to be a success with your book. And it is a fantastic book. I've got it myself. If you want to talk to us a little bit about that and how people can get in contact with you if they have any interest in what you do.
Yeah, cool. So I just written a book, Why Property, is about the fundamentals of property. So not a strategy, not, a course or a quick win. It's really about why property always has and why it always will work. And I kind of like boiling down into the fundamentals. And I think I've come up with the 5 fundamental forces that apply to property that don't apply to all other asset classes that haven't been compiled in that way before. So if that's of interest, whether you're an entrepreneur that wants to get into property or you're a property investor thinking, is the world changing too much in property? You realize if you read the book that actually over the next 10 years, it's going to be fine. And then in terms of getting in touch, whatever I can do for you, happy to have a chat about it. Just find Max Scott Property, and that's from Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, website, whatever it is. If you search that, you'll find me.
Excellent. Cool. So all of that stuff will be in the description as well. If you want to contact Max, we'll also put a link to his book in the description too, if you want to order that as well. And Max's story and description as well will be in the show notes. So Max, thank you very much for joining us today. This is exactly why the BioAge Index exists. It's not to guess, it's not to motivate, it's not to throw more tactics at the wall, but to understand where someone is now, where they're heading, and how many years of optimal life they can reclaim. And it's just as important to measure as accurately as possible, because if we measure things accurately, we know exactly where we are. And that's where my focus is not just reclaiming years, but doing it in a way that we can measure. Because if the measurement is wrong, the decision is wrong. Your personal case study shows this point clearly, that lots of things improve when you do things right: sleep, recovery, training, body composition, grip strength, VO2 max, and obviously your biological age. But the deeper lesson is the body, as I mentioned before, responds when the system is in the right order. More effort isn't always the answer, and Max has found this out definitely over the last 6 to 8 months. You need better structure, better rhythm, better recovery, better consistency. That's how we reclaim years, by doing the right things in the right order at the right time. And that is how we live better, longer. Thank you to everyone who has listened to this today. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, subscribe, share it with someone who will like to hear this. And as always, I will see you on the next episode. Thank you very much. Take care, everyone. Bye. Bye, Max.
Bye.